Hi, I'm Savannah Mexto with Mannor Law Group, and I'm excited to welcome you to another Webinar Wednesday with esteemed elder law and estate planning attorney, Robert Mannor. Today's webinar is extra special thanks to our special guest, Lea Anne Ivory with Genesys PACE of Genesee County. On today's webinar, Bob and Lea Anne will be discussing PACE and how this incredible program works hard to keep adults age 55 or better living in the community for as long as possible. Before I pass the torch to Bob and Lea Anne, let's cover a few important details. First, a disclaimer. Now, today's webinar is going to be educational, informative, maybe even a little bit of fun, but you're not going to get legal advice. If you need specific legal advice, I encourage you to contact us after the webinar so that we can assist you one-on-one. Also, keep note that today's webinar is recorded. We'll send out a replay of today's webinar tomorrow afternoon, and you can also share that replay with family and friends. Now, if you have questions during today's webinar, please be sure to put them in the chat box. We'll have time at the end of today's webinar to review questions. You can always also email questions to info@mannorlaw.com. Now, a little bit of a background on Mannor Law Group. Our firm is a nationally recognized and respected elder law and estate planning firm. All three of our attorneys are accredited by the Veterans Administration to assist veterans with claims and appeals. Attorney Bob Mannor is nationally board certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation. He's one of only 19 attorneys in Michigan to achieve this designation. He is currently on the executive board of the State Bar of Michigan Elder Law and Disability Rights Section and past president of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, Michigan chapter. Mannor Law Group has also been honored by readers of our local paper as the best or favorite law firm for the last 8 years in a row. Now, about our guest presenter, Lea Anne Ivory with Genesys PACE. Lea Anne is the sales and marketing coordinator at Genesys PACE and responsible for education and outreach for PACE's innovative model of care. She's presented to over 4,000 people about PACE and their unique model of care. She's organized countless opportunities for seniors in our community and coordinated outreach to senior centers, independent living, churches, and networking groups. And she'll be presenting at our upcoming Elder Advocacy and Law Boot Camp in Grand Blanc this fall. Now, I'd like to go ahead and pass the torch over to Bob and Lea Anne.
Well, Lea Anne, thank you so much for joining us today and our audience. I'll tell you a little bit that when I had first heard of PACE, it was from a different area in the state, and one of my friends, an elder law attorney on the west side of this state, had been talking about it and talking it up, and I thought, oh boy, it'd be really nice to have that in our area. And shortly thereafter, we had learned that they were opening up a Genesys PACE. But even then, I still didn't have a very good understanding of PACE. And sometimes it's such an interesting and unique program, but such a great program, but sometimes hard to understand. So I'm really appreciative of you here today to help us better understand this program and how it can help folks. So welcome.
Thank you, and I am excited for the opportunity. So I want to thank you, Bob and Savannah, for setting everything up.
All right, well, let's just start off with the basics here. So the PACE, what does PACE even mean?
Well, it's an acronym that stands for Program of All-Inclusive Care for, I like to say, older adults. I'm not too fond of the word elderly, but really, since it's designed for those who are struggling either physically with their memory or an unstable health condition. And Bob, what we do is provide wraparound care and services to help keep them in their home for as long as possible. So they actually are called participants because they participate in their care, and they are at the center of the care that we provide.
And so tell us a little bit more about this. So I mentioned earlier that it was several years ago when I had heard about it on the west side of the state, and it just sounded so great from the discussion that I had with one of my friends there. But PACE is not a new concept, is it?
No, not at all. Most people that I talk to about it the first time are really surprised. It's been in place for over 40 years. It actually was started as a model program out in California, and it really has grown by leaps and bounds. There are over 130 programs with multiple sites reaching over 51,000 people right now. And what's nice about any PACE program that opens up, such as ourselves when we did, you open up with that collective knowledge that's been gained over the years, and you can hit the pavement running with that. So it's a very collaborative group. It's mostly nonprofit. There isn't competition. It's just all about helping older adults.
So, and I don't want to get too, I want to really kind of drill down to this for the folks that are on the line and make sure that they stay paying attention to this. Before we get too far into the PACE program itself, you are from one specific PACE, right? You work with one specific geographic PACE that has a location and provides these services. And where is that?
So I represent Genesys PACE, which is located in Flint, Michigan. I'll share a little bit more about our service area, but each PACE program is licensed for certain zip codes to cover. And then they, whatever program is in that zip code then provides that care. So we opened up in 2015. So we're coming up on our 5th year anniversary. Great. And we serve Genesee County, and some of the crossover zip codes, and Lapeer County. We just recently acquired that, and then some of the crossover zip codes. So what I want to stress is the information that we exchange here today will apply to any other program in the nation. So the model of care, Bob, is the same no matter where you go. I always say the stories and the faces will change, but the model's the same. So if at the end of this presentation you can think of somebody outside of our immediate service area who could benefit, I will share some resources that will allow you to access whether or not there is a program supporting the zip code where they live.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, specifically for the state of Michigan here. So I think you shared with us about the coverage areas now.
Yeah, this is actually a visual from PACE Association of Michigan. And all those colors are individual PACE programs, which is pretty exciting because if you look at, there's nothing in the Upper Peninsula, but if you look at the Lower Peninsula, the coverage is really good. And what I want to say is this changes in the dark of night, if you will, because each program is growing. So us, for example, I'll share in our service area, we've recently expanded. So there are programs that are acquiring more zip codes. So those areas that are white, you're going to start to see those disappear. And then other programs are starting. So they are looking to probably start one in the Thumb area. So it's really exciting. Right now, we were the 9th site to open up in Michigan, and we actually now have 13 different sites on the go in Michigan. And all those colors represent a different site.
It's great. I remember you and I having a conversation sometime last year, and I had a client that this would really have been very, suitable for and very good for them. And I called you up with some frustration because it wasn't part of the coverage area, and you were excitedly said, but now it is. It will be in about 2 weeks. And that's really exciting that they are expanding. I know that you do have some coverage, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but you coverage in some of the Lapeer and Shiawassee, even a little bit of Oakland County, right?
Right. We expanded just for that client for you, Bob.
You did, that's right. I like that. All right. So, okay, so this is a program, before we get too far into it, it is a Medicaid program, which we're going to come back to that in a little bit, and you don't have to be on Medicaid to use the program, so we're going to get through all of this. I just want the listeners to know that this is, what we're talking about. It's for people that need care. They may have some dementia. They may have some physical needs. They need some help, and that, beyond just living alone or the family support that they have with their spouse or other family that's supporting them, but they're still living in the community. And so one of the big questions that we have on this is who's eligible? Who would be eligible for this? And before we get into that, I want to make sure everybody remembers. So we always, on these webinars, we always have folks that have heard me speak lots of times and are part of our family. And then there's folks that are new that have never heard from me before. And so I want to remind everybody, just because you hear the word Medicaid, don't get scared by that. There's lots of different things within the Medicaid law that allow us to help you and still qualify under certain conditions. don't be scared by that word, because sometimes there's just a lot of information that isn't fully accurate, isn't the full story. So, so having said that, let's talk about the eligibility to qualify for PACE. Oh, here's the other,
Yeah,
the
that's
rest
the
of
other.
the PACE sites.
Yeah, those are all the
That's
different
great. So Genesys
different
PACE.
sites in Michigan and expanding in the dark of night again. So who is
Okay.
eligible for PACE? I like to break it down and say there are 4 criteria, and this is across the nation, consistent. The first 2 are pretty straightforward. You have to be 55 or better, I like to say, and you have to be living in a zip code that is being supported by a PACE program. So that would be the line, number 2, that would change depending on where the person is living. And the good news that I have is that we started, and in fact, on the cover of this, it was Genesys PACE of Genesee County, which is our official name right now, but we actually are Genesys PACE beyond Genesee County and beyond. So we, within the last year, have acquired all of Lapeer County outside of a couple of zip codes up in the northern part. And then those crossover zip codes in Shiawassee, Livingston, and Tuscola. So we're really excited about that. And I think we brought a map to show you what those look like as well, just so you can get a sense of what's covered.
Ah, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've done, it was very easy when we started. I would say, are you in Genesee County? Well, then we can, if you're 55 or better, we can look at you. Now it's a little complicated. So I created this map for myself and our staff. So we have Genesee County in the middle. And then we have the different counties that we expanded to in different colors, just so that we know. Up in Tuscola to the north, we've got to the east Lapeer, and really our coverage is great there. Down into Livingston, you can see a little bit, and then Shiawassee, a big chunk of Shiawassee, just to give you a feel. And that map is also attached to this presentation for reference.
Very good. Yeah, so I did want to mention that over in the side column there, where you can ask questions, there's also a handout section. And Lea Anne has very generously provided us with some real positive information on there. So any of those things, if you click on handouts, you just click on the item that you want, and you can either open it or download it, and be able to see those, including this map. So very good. So
great.
then,
So we went over the first 2, but then there are 2 others. These are a little bit more abstract, Bob. So they have to meet the nursing home level of care eligibility, and they have to be able to live safely in their homes with our wraparound services. So what this basically means is somebody is struggling. They're struggling with daily living activities to the point it might not be every day, but on a regular basis that make it a struggle for them to remain independent in their home. But they want to live in the community. So that means, they're struggling physically, as we talked about, with their memory or an unstable health condition. The good news is nobody has to evaluate criteria 3 and 4, because we actually do that with our intake team. But I like people an idea of who might be a good candidate for the program, because I think that helps people to understand what we are offering. So it means that their struggles are that they want to stay in their home and they're struggling. So let's talk about a couple of folks right now. I have
give some examples.
Case studies, if you will.
Before we do that, I just want to mention on this level of care determination, it says must meet nursing home level of care eligibility. That's a fairly subjective standard, right? And that's why it's so important that you guys do that evaluation yourself. Just because someone else has said, oh, well, you don't qualify for this care facility, or you don't qualify for this, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't still have consider having PACE come in and do their own evaluation, because it is a bit of a subjective standard, right?
It is. And I really say, if somebody is struggling, if they're struggling physically with their memory or an unstable health condition, send them our way. Because if they are not eligible for the program, we can point them in the direction of other services. But a lot of people who don't think that they're eligible are actually eligible. And that's assessed very carefully by our team. So that's a very good point. Thank you.
All right, so let's take a look at a couple of examples here.
So just going back to folks with physical struggles. So if they have chronic fatigue, weakness, maybe they have a hard time standing to prepare a meal because of that. If they've had a stroke and that's not allowing them to get around their house, well, if they're falling a lot, if they are just struggling physically, they could be eligible for our program. Things like toileting, things like getting in and out of bed safely, in and out of chairs, those are all things that might make them eligible. So the story that I have here is Perry. I think I'm a big one for stories because it helps you to understand the program a little bit better. But Perry was a big sports player in the Flint area. He was involved in all kinds of sports, very active. And then at a very young age, he suffered a major stroke. And that totally changed the course of his life because he was not able to come back fully from that stroke. His family didn't know what to do. They were struggling. He wanted to stay in his apartment. He was living there alone. They found out about PACE, made the referral, and they were just so relieved that he was eligible. So we started with our program, and he has benefited a lot from our therapy services because, as you know, Bob, a lot of people that have strokes, after the benefits are gone, they can't go back and get more assistance, or if they do, it's a fee for service and it can be quite costly. But see, at PACE, it's not about reimbursement, so we can keep working with them. And folks that maybe aren't making a lot of progress, but they're still making progress, and even if they're not, we can still keep working with them because in Perry's instance, he was a very physical guy and he needed that outlet. He gets on the bike here in our therapy area. He walks over with assistance over to the farmer's market. So it's made a big difference in his wellness overall, in addition to all the other services. So that's an example of a physical struggle.
Leanne, that's one of the things that I always talk about with PACE. It's just one of those very unique elements of PACE that I don't know of any other other options that allow for a no end date of therapy. And that's a really big issue, especially for somebody with a stroke. And it just feels like so often somebody has a pretty serious stroke and then they go for, you know, in-house rehab at a rehab facility, and it just gets cut off so shortly. And then they go home, maybe they could get some home rehab, but that just often with Blue Cross or with Medicare, that just seems to not go on very long and it gets cut off. It can continue, but rarely does it. And PACE is so unique because they've got the therapist right there and there is no end date. You can continue if it's appropriate for you, you can continue PACE essentially for the rest of the life. I imagine Perry's had it for a very long time, which is good for him. Yeah,
it is. And you also bring up a really good point. We have a gym here on site. We can do it in the home, but we have it on site. Now, Perry became a champion of other people that have gone through strokes that are out in that therapy area. He encourages them, he cheers them on. So not only do you get the continued services that are not reimbursement based, but you have the support. You've got the same therapist, the occupational, physical, speech language if needed. You have other people that are suffering from the same thing, and they are there, and then they can serve as support for one another. So that collaboration, that community is really important.
Well, and this is one of those things, especially when it comes to, you know, I always immediately think of PACE when I have a client that's had a stroke because two things. You know, a lot of times people really want to stay in their home environment. They want to be home, but they have so many struggles. And they may have gotten some rehab, physical therapy, occupational therapy, even speech therapy. They may have gotten some, but you know, boy, oh boy, if that could continue and they were making such progress when they were getting the therapy, and to have that continue as long as they need it without any discussion about having it pre-approved or having Blue Cross involved or having anybody involved, it can be such an advantage because it allows somebody that otherwise likely would have to go into some kind of nursing home or assisted living or something like that, just because of their physical needs are so much. Now, it not only makes it so that they can stay in their home, but potentially it makes it so that, you know, they can improve and have some sense of recovery because they're continuing to get stronger with regard to the therapy. So it really is a unique program as it relates to that, specifically as it relates to stroke patients.
And we can restart therapy. So if somebody doesn't need therapy for a while, we can stop it. And if they have a need again or want to start it again, it all is in the hands of the care team. They just need to express that. So very good point.
That's great.
The reason that people come to us, these are the two main reasons, physical and memory challenges. So the other reason would be the memory. So people that are having a hard time keeping track of their medications, knowing when to take them, maybe they're getting that mixed up, they're not remembering to reorder. Maybe even they can't afford their medications and they're not going through with the orders just because they can't afford it. People that are forgetting to eat, we find that a lot. People that are not taking care of their self-care. Maybe they can't do their personal care. They need help in the shower. They need help doing laundry. All of those things. So dementia, Alzheimer's are a big population for us, those with memory challenges. Also supervising their life or finances or making poor, unsafe decisions. Those are folks that might be eligible for the program. And my example here is Joanne. So Joanne was one of our first folks to join, I think it was probably in 2015. She lost her husband, and as we often find with two people living together over a long period of time, they become one person. After her husband died, the family really realized she had a lot more memory challenges than they realized. She moved in with her daughter, so she had all the love and support that she needed. But she showed such little emotion. She was so depressed. She would sit on the couch just holding his photograph and looking at it. And no matter how much love, she just was in that space. The family reached out, learned about PACE. They learned about it and were very excited to enroll her. Fortunately, she was eligible. She is so excited now. She gets on the bus because we provide door-through-door transportation. She has that routine to go to PACE. She comes, she has a card table set up here where they have like a group of 4 people that always play cards together. She just has a new reason to get out of bed in the morning. And her daughter is able to go to work and know that she is in good hands. She has that peace and security of knowing her mom is fine. And not only that, but her mom came back to life again. I mean, she started to bloom rather quickly under our TLC and meeting new people. And her energy, her interests have been pretty amazing.
Lea Anne, I want to tell you, it's one of the things that I talk to people about when I'm bringing up the concept of PACE with them is every time I've been to the PACE Center there, it's such a positive environment. It's so inviting, it's so uplifting, which is not always the case at other places. And it is, I don't know how you all do this, but it's just, it seems like every staff member, every person, every team member there, and the participants are all just very positive and very uplifting. And it's been every time I've been there, it's been a very positive and good experience. And I think that's pretty unique to have that kind of environment, to have that, you know, positive, uplifting environment that's consistently. And I've stopped by. You're not just putting on airs for me stopping by. I've stopped by without notice and still experienced the same thing.
No, I think that's another really good point. We work hard to find the right people for the roles. And not only the right people, because we work with so many different disciplines, but people that really have a passion for working with older adults and have had hands-on experience. And we have such a joy to be able to bring people in and see them change, see that we can help them become their extended family of support. And myself, as I reach out into the community with the information, for me to reach somebody who's struggling, a family member, an individual, offer them the PACE option. And if it's an option, they get to choose. But then if they choose to join, I can watch them come in and I can see their lives change. And I can see their family dropping them off, and the amount of stress has been reduced. I'll tell you personally, that's very rewarding for me. And that's just one story. That's just me. But we have a lot of stories with staff out in our day center and beyond. And then we have a lot of stories with our participants, as I've shared here. So I think the energy is real and genuine. And I must say, during this time, it's been a struggle for us because we have not to prioritize health and wellness of everyone. We have been providing the same services we do at the center, wrapped around in their home environment to keep them very safe. We all miss them so much, and we miss our colleagues that are working from home. So we look forward to continuing to be safe and start to bring people in very cautiously and safely, because that's the priority, and we did really well with that. But I can't wait to have the energy back in that day center. It's just too quiet there right now, Bob.
And that's going to happen in stages coming shortly. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna. It's really about caution and keeping everyone safe. Our first priorities are our participants and our staff. Those are top priorities for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about whether or not there's, obviously this is a great program for certain folks. Is there some folks that it's probably not a great match for them?
Yep. And just I want to touch upon the real quick the other category too. So we have the memory and physical, but also conditions. So things like Parkinson's, unstable diabetes, CHF, congestive heart failure, people that are on oxygen and are struggling with that. Those are all good potential candidates. People on dialysis. So those are the three categories. So I wanted to make sure. But yeah, not everyone's a great match for the program. And this new piece that I wanted to go over, because we're doing it more one-on-one. But if you go to the next slide, we have always said, so we try to keep people in community. And in fact, sometimes people that are in nursing homes, we can transition them out of the nursing home with our wraparound services. When folks thought that they'd be there permanently, we can get them back into a community environment. But not everyone's the right match for PACE, in that some people require that 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. And that is a better match for a skilled nursing community or some environment that is there 24/7. So if somebody's needs are too great and we can't keep them safe in that community setting, then we will not be able to admit them. They would have to go to a higher level of care. That's on the onset. If they're with our program and that care need changes, we will go with them to the higher level of care and transition and continue to oversee them. But the other thing that's really important is we are not a placement agency. So people do come to us and they're in a situation where they probably can't stay in their home safely. We can evaluate them, but if that's not an option, they really need to go to another environment, maybe like an older adult living community that has a little bit more infrastructure and support for them rather than their house. And then once they move into that location, we can come in and we can assess them in that location. Because, Bob, we have to evaluate them in the location where they're going to live to see if they're eligible and if we can provide the services needed. So if somebody comes to us and they're in that state of wanting to move and get into another setting, we would make a referral to other organizations that might help them with that. And then we would advise them to give us a call back, or we'll check back with them later. And then we can reopen the referral when they get in that new location. And I want to state too, we don't pay mortgages. So if somebody has a mortgage at home and they can't afford it, we can't pick that up. And we do not pay room and board. So if somebody's in an assisted living and they are running out of money, we can't just come in and take over paying that room and board for them. So those are things that we've had to explain a lot. So I thought I would
And sometimes those are the folks that should be coming to talk to us, hopefully before they run out of money, because but those are the folks that when they're in a situation where maybe they had a good setting in an assisted living, they can't just expect to run out of money and then there's going to be another program there.
No.
It doesn't work that way. That's why you really need to strategize and come see us on those types of things. But I did want to mention a couple of things about this that you mentioned and just highlight them. One of the things I think is very overlooked is when somebody goes to the hospital for some reason, for a fall, for even a stroke, whatever the issue was, they go in for rehab and then they have to leave rehab, and the rehab place indicates that they really need some continuing care. I think PACE is often overlooked, and it shouldn't be, because it's a really good option to say, okay, yes, you're going home, yes, you have some family support, but you know, can we look at PACE? And the idea would be that we could actually bring PACE in while they're still receiving their physical therapy, while they were still receiving their services under Medicare and Blue Cross at the rehab facility, and at least start that process. Now, they have to be in their home for that evaluation, right? But we can at least start that process and have a discussion to say, does this look like it's going to be a good fit or not? And it's a real good option to, because I know we deal with a lot of families, so a lot of people, unfortunately, we'd like them to come to us before it gets to that crisis point, but a lot of people don't come to us until there's that crisis of the nursing home's kicking them out. They say that. It's not really the real words of it, but that's often how the family feels, is the nursing home saying, you got to leave here, and they don't have a plan and they don't know what to do, and so then they come to see us, which is great. Wish they would have come in 2 weeks earlier or a year earlier or things like that. But that is one of the options that we really need to think about, is saying, okay, if we are going home, can we get some of these support services? Can we get some of the help, you know, especially with the stroke situation or some of these other Parkinson's, you know, something like that. It would be good to at least check and see if PACE is a good option.
Right, and it is a month-to-month sort of enrollment. So, and it is long-term care. So this process of evaluating somebody for the program doesn't happen overnight. So it is good. It's better to reach out early. We can at least send the information, get them on our map, and check back with them. Oftentimes we'll get a referral from somebody coming out of the hospital, but they're going to a skilled nursing community. And then we like to check in with that skilled nursing community to let them know that that caseworker at the hospital felt that they might be a nice match for PACE, and maybe educate that social worker at the nursing home about it. But you're right, you know, we encourage them to go home with the home services that they need, but we can overlap that time frame by starting to assess them in that home environment for our program. And we've even been very creative at having somebody take a day leave of absence from a nursing home to go back to their home, and we can assess them, you know, for that day.
That's such a great idea.
Transport them to the center, you know, so we can be creative.
And I wish more families would realize that that is an option, and it is an option. It's built into the law, it's built into the insurance programs, that you are allowed to take somebody home for some period of time and get them, you know, let's see if this is going to work. So sometimes families just say, oh, they're not looking at any, you know, they just kind of put on blinders and they're just saying, we're taking dad home. Okay, great. Let's test that. Let's just make sure that dad can actually get, you know, if we don't have a ramp and things like that. And I've had so many families take dad home or take mom home, and they can't even get dad or mom inside the house. They haven't tested this process. And so it's one of those things that I'm a big proponent of, that to say, okay, let's not jump into anything and make any conclusions before we've ramped up to it. And not, you know, I'm not talking about ramps. I'm talking about making sure that we've got the things in place that are going to make that happen. The other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to highlight, which I think is really important to note, is the sort of the independent living type setting, right? And so this is really important, because the combination, and this is one of the things I'll tell you, I recommend this to folks probably once a week. I recommend that they consider independent living and PACE and combine those two things. Now, is there going to be a cost to that? Yes, we're going to talk about cost for PACE and how, you know, for most folks, it's not really going to cost them anything. But the independent living and PACE, yes, we're going to have to figure out how to pay for the independent living. That's true. But the idea of that protective environment combined with the advantages of PACE and the support of PACE, I think that sometimes is going to be a really positive experience for folks, and better than being in a house in a neighborhood with by themselves at 2 a.m., especially if they have any dementia or something like that, because there are the people there that will see somebody wandering around or, you know, something like that in an independent living. That's why they call it a protective environment. Too many folks, too many families, a lot of families don't think about this kind of stuff until the crisis strikes, until that they have that personal experience with it. And so people have this in their heads that if they ever have to leave their home for anything, they're going to a nursing home, and that, you know, that term nursing home. And there's so many different options out there, from actual, what I call nursing home, which is a skilled care center, 24-hour skilled care, to assisted living, to memory care, to adult foster care, to independent living. And independent living can be a really nice option to combine that with PACE. And yes, we've got a, part of the thing that we do. I know a lot, if you're new to Mannor Law Group, you may be surprised by us saying that we're helping you strategize about how to get long-term care. When you think lawyers do that, well, not very many lawyers do that. That's true. But yes, we do that. And so the idea is to say, coming up with a plan that says, okay, how are we going to pay for the independent living? But even with the independent living, that's not going to be enough. We need to add additional support, and that's where PACE can really fit into that plan in a really positive way. So I just wanted to highlight that too.
Yeah, and you're right. Even moving from a home environment into an apartment, even if it's not a senior community, you've got a safety net of services. You don't have your household maintenance anymore. You've got people right in the area. So if you need help, you've got a community around you. So you're right. That makes a huge difference. There's a lot in between being in your home, maintaining that, and going into a nursing home. There are a lot of different options out there.
Absolutely.
So the last thing too is can I mention the behavioral health just real quick?
Yes, please.
Behavioral health. This is a really big thing. There are some programs that are like Southeast Michigan, that is the oldest in the state. They do have very strong behavioral health services. They have psychiatrists on staff, geropsychiatrists. We are not as strong in behavioral health. We do a lot of counseling. We've got social workers on staff. We have folks we can tap into within our network. But if behavioral health concerns are primary, we may not be the best option. That doesn't mean you don't send the referral or don't give us a call, because we will let you know that. But as primary, we wouldn't want to take away those primary services for somebody. But as secondary, most of our folks that are enrolled have some form of secondary concerns in that department. Just think about depression alone. That's a common thing when somebody's dealing with chronic long-term illness. We have resources to help them with that. We have a lot of resources in that area, but people that need that as a primary need, it might not be the best match.
No, I agree with that. When we're dealing with mental health issues and things like that, that can be very challenging for a lot of different long-term care facilities. It's not just PACE. That's a unique issue, and it doesn't always fit well in with the other types of long-term care services. So that can require unique services that are not necessary. I see that we have a couple of questions. I'm going to hold those to the end because I looked at them. They're great questions, and we will get to them. But I think I'm going to hold the questions to the end because I think they'll fit better at that time. All right. So then this is something I really like this slide. I've talked to people about this interdisciplinary team that they come up with the plan of care. And I've never seen this up until today. I never saw this.
That's because it was created for you.
Okay, great. And I really like it because I'd always try to think of the people on the team. I know, is it 11 different ones or how many? I think. Yeah,
11 disciplines, 8 of which are medical. So basically, you remember when I said at the beginning, the PACE model of care is the same, no matter where you go. It's the stories and the faces that will change. So this is the nuts and the bolts of it. The PACE model of care consists of an interdisciplinary team, 11 different disciplines on the team, and you can see them all around this wheel. That must be part of a PACE program. Then those disciplines assess the individual coming into the program one-on-one, and then they gather around one table and develop a personalized plan of care for that person. And that becomes their roadmap to care and guides them as to what care they'll receive, how often, and where it will be provided. And then with that plan in place, when they enroll, if they choose to enroll, then the primary care for the individual will transition over to us. That team of, I call them the SWAT team of disciplines in collaboration with our medical director. So it would make no sense, Bob, if we assessed everyone and got a sense of what's going on in their home, what likes and dislikes they have recreational for our day center, what their transportation needs, what medical equipment they need. And then that oversight were outside of our walls. So it makes a whole lot of sense to have it all under one roof. So that is the model of care. And this I created to just try to, because it's hard to explain. I wanted to have it all on one sheet to give folks an idea of what are the nuts and the bolts.
It's such a holistic opportunity here to really look at the whole person and make sure that we're looking at all of the issues, which is rare to find that. We talk about a lot about holistic planning and making sure that we're looking at not just of course we have to look at money and finances and all of that, but that's not the only answer. We also have to look at quality of life and quality of care and family situations and family support and all those types of things. And so we're really big on talking about holistic solutions and holistic options. And this is very much that. One of the ones that I like to point out is the transportation part of it. One of the things that I remember you telling me about is that it's indoor to indoor. In other words, it's never pulling up and honking the horn. That's not a thing with PACE. They're going to come in, they're going to make sure that the person is all set and help them into the transportation. And then when they get there, it's not just, okay, get out. It's going to be, helping them inside, helping them transition, all of those types of things, right?
Yeah, that door through door is critical for the people we serve, a lot of them. So what's traditional is curbside, right?
Yeah.
A lot of folks could never get to the curb. So that door through door transportation is really critical for them to get. We provide it to the PACE Center and all medical appointments. And I have amazing news to share there. So when we started, Bob, we partnered with MTA, Mass Transit Authority here, which was a great arrangement. We didn't have a lot of people, and we really, as we do with our provider network, we partner to meet the needs. If we can't do it ourselves, we're gonna develop a partnership with somebody and get in contract with them. So that worked out fine. It really did. They hired the best drivers, the most customer service oriented, the most patient, and it worked out fine. But our intention was to get our own team of buses together and our own drivers that would be on staff with us. And that just happened within the last month. So we are so excited to have 15 buses cruising the streets. And we're also very excited because our service area has gotten a lot larger. Those buses are driven by our own staff people who have been trained. So you will see more buses out on the road, and I can't tell you how excited we are and how excited the participants are going to be on our own buses.
Yeah, that's a really great thing to have them. It's great to have partners that you work with, but to have it all so in-house and make sure that they're trained and consistent. That's what they're doing every day, and you just get a certain level of expertise if you're doing that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the support that's available through PACE.
So we have access to all the same services that somebody would get in a nursing home setting, but we provide it in a community location. And so that is no easy feat. So when we started out with a network of coverage. But as we enrolled more people into the program and they had their needs and we did not have it in the network, we reached out and grew that network. So, and we are governed the same as any nursing home as well. But what's unique about PACE is that because it's not reimbursement driven, we can think outside of the box. So if we go into a home and somebody has COPD, they're wearing oxygen, and they do not have air conditioning and their bedroom is getting overheated during the summer, and they have trouble breathing. So it's needs-based. So if the need is there, we can do that. we can go out and buy an air conditioning unit and hook it up to their bedroom so that they can be safer and well in that setting. That's unusual because insurance companies normally can't do that. So we're unrestricted with regard to that. And also, you know, we touched upon it with the therapy, but it's many other services. It's not limited in terms of how many visits you get. So oftentimes if somebody goes into the hospital, they're entitled to a nurse to come out and care for them, maybe some therapy in the home. And with that comes a certified nurse assistant to help with showers. But that's a very short period of time. And after that's done, it's done, unless you have to go back into the hospital to get it again. With us, no, we're just there every step of the way, understanding what the needs are and putting those needs in place. Now, it is needs-based. So if somebody, my example is, if somebody wants a Cadillac, when we go assess them in their home out in the driveway, they probably aren't going to have that in their plan of care, but they are going to have those things that they need to stay safe and well in their home. Those are going to be a priority for us because we're signing up to do that for them, and being held accountable for that. So, and our services are actually provided in the home, throughout our network that I talked about, and then at our PACE center. So those are the 3 areas or groupings, I like to say, where we provide services.
I think that's interesting. So many families, when they'll call me up, somebody, a nurse or social worker or somebody else in the community says, you got to call Mannor Law Group, and they don't really know why they're calling. And so they say, well, I'm not sure why we're calling, because the hospital said that mom can come home, but they're going to have a nurse there and they're going to have other people come in. And what they don't realize at that point is that that's going to be for a very short period of time, and not very often. It's going to be maybe once, twice a week, something like that for each person, and probably for less than an hour each time that they come visit. It's certainly not going to be the kind of comprehensive care that we're talking about, where we're really looking at the big picture. Not, you know, obviously PACE isn't going to provide 24-hour care. That's not what PACE is intended for. But the idea that it's not just going to be that, you know, for 5 weeks, somebody's going to come by for a half hour 2 times a week. You know, that's not going to be sufficient for most families. That's going to be for somebody that, you know, they just need somebody to make sure that somebody checks their blood pressure, or that they do have that shower assist. But they're going to need some additional supports beyond that. And so many families don't hear that, because they hear, oh, they're going to, you know, this will be covered by insurance, they're going to send somebody by. Well, no, that's a very limited amount of help that you're going to get there. You did mention something that that covers one of the questions, so I will address it now, just because it's consistent with what you just said. Does PACE assist with assistive technology devices such as ramps for individuals? So I had mentioned ramps earlier. Is that something that if the home doesn't have a ramp and it's appropriate, that and need-based, is that something PACE can assist with?
Yes, so we've had situations where families are bumping people up and down the stairs, and we don't consider that a safe option for getting them in and out of the house. So if they are enrolling in the program and they enroll, we will prioritize that. If we need to install a ramp to get them safely in and out of their home, that will be a priority and part of their plan of care when they join us. So yes, we can assist with that. Yeah.
Very good.
Good question.
So let's talk about the in-home services here.
Yeah, so just to give people an idea, so when we go out and assess the home, we would determine with our social worker and our nurse within the home by 2 different visits, that's what we normally do, what services are needed. Again, needs-based. We want to keep that person as independent as possible, but those pieces that are hard for them, that are causing them to be vulnerable at staying well, those are the ones that we're going to put in place. And this gives you an idea of some of those things. I want to mention during this period of time where we've had all of our participants, and there are 148 of them, in their home environment, we've been able to change our plan of care right away to reflect the environment that's changing. And there are a whole lot more services in people's homes right now, given the situation. So we can be responsive right off the bat. But things like home medical equipment, even incontinence supplies, those are covered by us. delivered meals, help with meal preparation, and a real big one is home delivered prescriptions. So we cover the prescriptions with no additional cost to them. Diabetic supplies, what they need, and they're delivered to the home. If somebody needs an alarm system for dispensing medications, we can put that on. Medication boxes, whatever is going to make them successful at taking the medications when they need to, we will assess that. We have nurses dropping by the home, therapy, all of that. So that's our in-home component. And again, on the individual assessments. Then we have our wonderful provider network that's growing every day. Specialty care, hospital assistance, ambulance, emergency care, caregiver respite. I want to mention this. So a lot of times when families or spouses are caring for somebody with chronic long-term illness, they are exhausted. They are beyond tired. And often, I'm sure you see this a lot, Bob, the partner who's caring for the person with dementia passes away before they do because they have worn themselves out. So that's a real common problem. And when people come to us, sometimes they are just, the caregiver factor is just too extreme. So what we are able to do is up to a couple of stays every year, up to 5 days. And we may be able to do more than that. It really is evaluated by their social worker. We can check them into a secure environment where all their needs are met and their loved one can go to a wedding. They can go out of town. They can just go home and take a nap and read and do some of the things that they need to be strong. So we will provide respite. We did talk about the door-through-door transportation. And then we do have nursing home care on there. We also have assisted living. We have memory care in our provider network. And why that's in there, we can't usually take somebody from that environment into the program. But if we have somebody in a community environment, like an apartment or a home or living with a family, and that family or that environment, their needs change after they enroll and they need a higher level of care, we can assess that and we will know that that's happening because we're assessing them continuously. We can assess them, determine what's the next best level of care and help them transition to that. It could be as simple as what you mentioned, somebody that's in an independent home and needs to go to an apartment. So we see a lot of that. That is the only time that costs come into play because then when they get to that location, they would still be responsible for their room and board. You would join the team of that site and still overlay our services.
Nice, very nice. And then it's one of the things I mentioned that's actually PACE is really the only program that has that works particularly well. Sometimes people talk about my choice waiver, but that it can be challenging to do my choice waiver in an assisted living type setting, and so the PACE does still, has that program, and again, it's in coordination with their partners that they have, but it is a possibility that there's coverage there that works a little bit smoother than what I would say that the waiver program does. One of the things that there's a limitation on waiver is they generally do not get very many hours of assistance for folks with dementia. And so somebody could, if they were in the program already, let's say they've been in the PACE program for several years, and now their dementia has gotten to the point where the team feels that they need a different environment. The idea that they can grow into that and still be part of the PACE program is really really important, and that we don't have to look at a different program if that occurs.
And I'll tell you, the senior living communities, the independent living communities like apartment complexes, they love us when we're seeing one of their residents, because we know when they're starting to get to the point they no longer live there safely, and we would proactively work with their family and them to redirect them to another level of care. So we can keep them in that community as long as possible, which is great. But I know those are really tough situations sometimes when somebody thinks they can live independently and they are no longer safe there. We can proactively help with that. So we do partner very well with those senior living communities. It's a good match.
Yeah, that's so important.
Our PACE Center. So this is the hub of our program. This is not the only part, because we have services in the home and the network, but it's used to be the International Institute. It's right by the new Flint Farmers Market. It's in the middle of Genesee County, and this center was renovated around the needs of those that we serve. So this is, if you haven't had a chance to stop in, right now we're not taking visitors, but when things start to get a little bit into our new normal, we would encourage you to stop by and see it, because as Bob has mentioned, to walk inside and experience it really helps you to see the benefit and the energy between the walls. It's pretty amazing. So in that building there, we have so many services. We have our medical clinic, which does primary and urgent medical care. We do meals and dietary counseling services, hot meals served restaurant style to our folks when they come into the day center. We have that medication management, which is really critical with older adults. They usually come to us with way too many medications and they're interacting. We've got that therapy gym. We have spiritual care. We're part of Ascension, which is the largest Catholic healthcare system in the world and the largest nonprofit in the nation. And so we have a chaplain on site that does some non-denominational church groups, inspirational groups, is available to meet with family and participants. And we have showers. We can give people showers. We even have a jacuzzi tub if we want to elevate the bathing experience. A big part of what we normally offer that's on hold right now is the whole day center, the recreation, the activities. We partner with Valley Area Agency on Aging for therapy, art therapy, things like that. We have folks come in from Michigan State to teach cooking classes. Our rec therapy, they're amazing. And the warmth and the energy in that area is really great. So we really help to give people a reason to get out of bed again. Truly, they just have, and you saw that in action. We also wrote those services that most people need, like podiatry, the eye care, the foot care. We bring the practitioners on site and we rotate our priority cases through that so that we don't have to transport them out there. So that's again the PACE model of care. Lab testing's done on site.
Nice.
Work services, we have those as well, and behavioral health counseling on site now. So our advantage is that safety net for everyone, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So when you wake up in the middle of the night and you don't know who to call, you call us, and a doctor or a nurse will call that person back. And not only that, we know you. We have all your records there. It's the team, it's the personalized plan of care, and the medical director oversight.
Yeah, no, I think that's extremely important because you know, things can change overnight and you know, very quickly, and to have the family have a resource for that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that can be really, you know, really great.
But I want to stress, even though there are all of us doing all these things with the oversight, who's at the center of this wheel of care? Who's at the center of the care we provide? It's the participant. Their goals, their rights, their autonomy. We collaborate with their caregiving network. We're not there to replace it. We want to extend and enhance it. And we're really looking at the preventive things. What can we do to keep them safer in their home? And what changes can we make? And we're assessing that ongoing. And again, like you said, Bob, that holistic approach, psychosocial, medical, it's all these people around this wheel that make that possible. It's pretty extensive.
Person-centered, which is really great. That's the goal.
Yeah. So this is the good news. So most people, when they hear all about all these services, they're like, how much does it cost? How much does it cost? Everyone that's enrolled right now, outside of if they pay toward the room and board, they don't pay anything for the program. And that is because they have Medicare and Medicaid or Medicaid alone. And in that instance, everything's covered, no out of pocket. As long as it's in the plan of care, we're going to cover it. And as long as they're staying in network, there's a cost sharing option that's pretty high. So we don't have anyone on that. But for those who want to stay in their home, that's an option. It's about $4,000 a month. But the good news is that a lot of people, and you mentioned this, and we send a lot of people to you and elder law attorneys because people will come to us, they're interested in the program, they don't have Medicaid, but they have the income that makes them potentially eligible for Medicaid, which is per person, per month, $2,349 gross. So a lot of people say Medicaid, oh, that's not for me, I'm not eligible. They might have tried in the past, but if I ask them if they're below that income, which is over $28,000 a year, most of them are like, yeah, I am. So obviously there's an asset consideration, but that the referral would be made for some more information about that. And your firm, you guys do an awesome job with that, educating them, walking them through the process. And in many cases, that individual can make some changes that make them fully eligible for Medicaid. And we will not enroll them until afterwards because they really don't want to pay that $4,000 a month. But a lot of people are in the position to join right now, and we take them through the Medicaid process, get them signed up, and then they join the program.
The key thing on this, and so just as with any government program, there are pages and thousands of pages of regulations as it relates to Medicare and Medicaid. There's so many ins and outs of it. And as with any government program, if you know the program well enough, you can improve your circumstances. So I compare a lot of times what we do with people that go to an accountant to get their taxes done. Because what they want is they want that accountant to know the tax code so well that they can teach them how to save more of their money. And that's the same thing we do with Medicaid. That often within the Medicaid rules, there's options for us to still protect assets, especially if it's a married couple, and still be able to protect things. And even if you're not eligible today, we might be able to get them eligible in 30 days. And so, and it's not basically the big thing on this is that income number. And so if they're considered over assets, so there's for Medicaid, there's both an asset check and an income check when it comes to this. And I just want to clarify that in a second. But for the asset check, that's when they really should come to see us, because maybe there's an answer, maybe there's not, but it's at least worth evaluating that to say, can we still protect assets and still qualify? And the answer is most of the time, yes. As far as the income option, this is only for this type of Medicaid, for this type and for waiver-based Medicaid. If it was nursing home-based Medicaid, there's no income limit, okay? So that's really important to note for folks that are listening. There's no income limit. And so we can help folks if they have to go into a actual nursing home, a skilled care facility, that they're not going to be barred because of this income limit. I will tell you also this, and Lea Anne, I think you know this, that I'm the, I guess, incoming chair-elect of the state bar section on elders, and we have a lobbyist. And one of our top priorities is to remove this income limit and find a way to work around this income limit. Because so many more people could help if you have $2,350 a month.
I know, and that's a sad situation.
And I've seen this happen so many times when people are over by just a few dollars, and it's just a shame. But that is the limit right now, and there's really nothing we can do about that in Michigan. If the individuals, not the married couple, but the individual's income. So sometimes if the husband only gets Social Security, but the wife gets pension and Social Security, maybe the husband would qualify, but the wife doesn't. That's often the case, or the other way around, the wife qualifies, but the husband doesn't. But the issue on this income thing is we're working on that. And we actually have some folks within the legislature, and I think we have even the governor's ear at this point, to, now this is gonna be a long road, especially now. They've got some other things to deal with right now. And so we're making some real progress on some of our lobbying efforts. Obviously, they're going to be stalled a little bit because of everything that's going on, but I will let you know that this is one of our top priorities, is to see if we can find a workaround for this income limit, because many states have. Most states have figured out a way that they can have people qualify for the PACE program and other Medicaid programs without having this income limit. So we're working on that, but right now that is
Thank you. That's a really important cause.
And then how do we get a hold of you?
You call us or go online, and we're revamping our website. It's not great right now, but in the next month or so, we'll have some forms that you can populate and that will get into our hands. But what I really want to stress is please think about people who are struggling, because these are the folks that are not going to drop into the center or probably aren't going to think to go online and look for options. But you know about it now. Reach out to them. Let them know that we at least exist. And they will always end up better off for calling, because if we can't help them, we can point them in other directions. But the simple start of this process is with a call. You speak to somebody, you learn more about the program, you will give us some information, and then you decide whether or not you want, or they do, whether or not they want to go through the intake process. And there's no obligation to go through that. But at the end of the process, after all those assessments, the individual will know if PACE is an option, and they'll also know what the program would look like for them, because it is very personalized. And then at that point, they can make a call on whether or not they want to enroll. It's not a one-way street. It's a month-to-month enrollment. So if somebody gets in the program and they decide to move to an area that doesn't have PACE, they can disenroll by the end of the month and go back to whatever insurance they had prior. So there really is no reason not to call and find out more about it. Oftentimes people will go through, not oftentimes, but sometimes they'll go through the process, learn about it, and they won't join in until they go through again. They think about it, they at least know what it might look like. They're struggling a little bit more and they reach out to us, and maybe they enroll the second time. So no hard sell, but definitely they'll end up in a better place.
Yeah. And so we got some resources here, and this is also in both a downloadable form on the handouts, but also I understand that Savannah is going to send you an email. If you're on this call, she'll send you an email that has the clickable links for you to be able to click on these additional resources.
Yeah, so these are really helpful. The Valley Area Agency on Aging, we've got a really important grid of long-term care-based programs that are community-based that a lot of people don't know about. Pull that up. It's a side-by-side comparison. It's very helpful. And then in terms of PACE, we talked about there's 13 programs in Michigan. There's the MDHHS site, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, lists all the programs. PACE of Michigan Association, PACE Association of Michigan also. And then a really easy way is to go to the national site, the PACE Finder app. You just put in a zip code after you go to that website, and it will tell you if there's a PACE program supporting, and it will give you the contact information. And then I've included some information about our PACE program.
And those are all downloadable in the handout section there. This is a nice picture, and the phone number again and ours. So let's see if we have a few questions. Savannah, if you're there, we were able to answer one of the questions, but do we want to kind of go through the rest of them? Are you able to see those questions?
Yeah, yep, I'm here, and we do have a few questions, and some of these you did kind of touch on, but we can just bring them up again and sort of refresh. So the first question was asking about if the PACE Center is affected, or services are affected by COVID restrictions. And I know that you touched on this, but if you could just refresh us one more time, what is PACE doing for COVID, and how is it affecting the services in the center at this time?
It has affected things. And again, our number one priority is our participants and our staff. So even before many other organizations, we had a leader here that researched the COVID and immediately brought us into a room and said, we are going to make some immediate changes. No one's coming to the center anymore, just urgent medical affairs. We're going to do wraparound services at home to minimize exposure for folks. And all the essential staff, and we have a lot of heroes, are actually out there caring for folks in their home with all the protective gear, with all the standards. And then those who don't need to go out and provide those wraparound services are at home staying safe. So when we will start to we put a plan into the state to reopen and start to bring people back, but it's going to be very slow and very cautious, because we don't want anyone to get exposed to anything. So that will be our priority. Also, with regard to referrals, we've had a pause on the referral process since mid-March. Again, our priority is our staff and our existing participants, but we have just unpaused that. So we will start to work the referrals. We've got a lot of them. We've been keeping in touch with people. Our intake coordinator has many, many calls every week to just up people according to the governor's stay-at-home orders. And now she gets to reach out to say, okay, you're invited to go through the intake process. So we're going to do that with the utmost of concern and caution and guidance from our clinical staff.
Wonderful. Now, another question was brought up, and this is a two-part question. Is there a program that will pay for an adult child to pay for the care of a parent in the parent's home? And if so, what type of training would the adult child need to go through?
I am not as well versed in that. Do you know a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I was going to take that question. So basically, that's going to be a very case-by-case basis. It's not for everybody. Let's just put it that way. If it's something that is a possibility, you can certainly reach out to our office. I would reach out to the Valley Area Agency on Aging. Mm-hmm. That's probably the first resource. If they say that there's a program that you might be eligible for, but there's some income or asset restriction that they are concerned about, then I would say call our office. Those programs are fairly limited, and especially for adult, for senior, for elders care. There's more programs available for caring for young people with special needs. But for elders, long-term care, there are some programs, but they're sometimes somewhat challenging to qualify for. So I would reach out to Valley Area if this is for someone 65 and above. If it's for needing care for a younger person, and young in my world is anything under 70. So younger person that has special needs, then there may be other programs, especially for particularly under 26 years old. There's going to be some programs out there that where a family member can provide for caregiver, and certainly for older too, but it usually has to be started prior to their when they were younger. So hopefully that helps.
All right, thank you, Bob. And we did have one more question, but they popped back up to say that it was answered during the presentation.
That was
and
sweet.
One more just came through. So another, and this looks like it might actually be sort of a carry-on. It says adult home help could be an option for age 18 and above through MDHHS.
Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, yes, absolutely. And so there's definitely programs out there that are available. It's going to be very fact specific, and that's why I was kind of comparing the difference between somebody that's in different settings in their life. But there's definitely programs that are out there, even for the seniors. It's just they're a little bit more accessible for younger folks that requires 24-hour care and things like that. And next, there's a number of programs out there. And also, we never want to forget about the veterans benefits and things like that, where we can often pay a family member through veterans benefits. There's a variety of programs out there. So I don't want it to be just limited to Medicaid programs, although there are some Medicaid programs that would allow for a family member to be paid for. So they're very, very fact specific.
All right. Great. Thanks so
much. Changes, right?
Pardon me?
I said, and nothing ever changes, right?
It changes daily,
all the time. That's why it's very important. You're an amazing resource to keep up to speed on what's going on and how the law is changing, and that's a big job. And we are glad you're out there, because we couldn't keep up with all that.
Well, Lea Anne, we appreciate you being here today. I'm going to have Savannah kind of wrap things up, and we'll give you one more time. We'll give out our contact information here, and we'll have Savannah wrap things up here.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Lea Anne, for joining us, and thank you, Bob. And thanks again to everyone who joined us for today's webinar. As Bob mentioned, we do have an easy way for you to get started working with our team, or just even to contact us to ask a question. If you or someone you know could benefit from the PACE program, but maybe you're concerned that you might not qualify, or maybe you just have a long-term care question, or even a general estate planning question. Well, if so, we encourage you to contact our team. Now, you should have gotten an email a few moments ago, and it'll actually give you an opportunity to do just that. In this email, you'll have two options. One, if you'd like to connect with our team of attorneys to talk about anything that was mentioned here today, you can actually click to schedule a 15-minute phone call interview with someone from our team. One of our client service team members will reach out to you at the time and day that you choose, just to ask a few questions about your situation, and more importantly, let you ask a few questions about us. Make sure that you're comfortable working with our firm and that we can actually assist with your issue. The good news is that if it's something we don't think we can help you with, we'll refer you to someone who can. So in that email that just went out, you will have a way to schedule your own call. Now, if you don't know that you're ready for a call, maybe you just have a question or a concern, or you'd like a little bit more information about something that we talked about today, well, we take care of that for you there too. In the same email, there's a way that you can click and actually just contact our team. It'll take you to our website, and you can leave your question or concern there, and a member of our team will reach out to you within 24 business hours. So again, that email should already be in your inbox. If you're watching the recording of today's webinar, then just know you can always reach out to us by emailing info@mannorlaw.com or by calling 810-694-9000. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.